So maybe we should begin. I see a number of new friends. I'm Denny Waxman. Happy to be here. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself to start. My background is in macrobiotics. And I first came in contact with macrobiotics in 1967 when the older brother of a friend of mine told me if I ate brown rice only for 10 days, I would get high. I would change my consciousness. So it got my attention. But that wasn't enough to make me start. I kept asking everybody I knew, do you know anything about macrobiotics? And one day I came home, and there was a book on my bed. And I lived with a bunch of guys, so it could have gotten there anyway. And the book was called You Are All Sampaku by George Osawa, with an extensive foreword by William Dufty. And it was the first book I ever read from beginning to end in my entire life. I couldn't put it down. Next day I went out and I bought 3 ingredients. Brown rice, sea salt, and moo tea, a kind of herbal beverage. I decided I was going to start on my 10 days of brown rice. The only problem was, on the 3rd day, I found myself in a supermarket with this uncontrollable urge, and I bought 3 things. A box of graham crackers, a quart of orange juice, and a half gallon of Breyer's vanilla fudge ice cream, my favorite. And I ate the graham crackers and drank the orange juice before I got to the checkout counter. And I decided to wait home to eat my half gallon of ice cream, which I did. And I thought, this philosophy is incredible and this diet is impossible. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I began my search for another macrobiotic person. One day I was in a health food store, Martindale's health food store. And this really intense-looking guy walked in. He had a shaved head, and I figured he's got to be macrobiotic. So I walked up to him and I said, do you know anything about macrobiotics? He said, yes. Not only that, I came to Philadelphia to change the consciousness level of the city. So that's great. How are you going to do it? He said, well, I'm going to start a macrobiotic restaurant. I said, sounds good to me. You want a partner? He said, yeah. I got his name, his number, put it in my pocket. A couple days later, I called him up. His name is Stanley Petrowski. I said, Stanley, are you serious? He said, yeah. So let's meet. So we met, and we started to walk around looking for a space. At that time, at 20th and Sansom, they were building an underground hippie mall. There was this old parking garage that was closed down, and they took it over, and they had all these hippie shops. They had 1 space left. They wanted $200 for the down payment. Stanley took out his life savings, 2 crisp $100 bills, put them down, we signed the lease. Problem was, we found out a few days later it wasn't zoned for a restaurant and we couldn't get a variance. We talked for a while and said, what are we going to do? We said, well, we'll change it. We'll start a food store. That was February 10th, 1969, and we decided to call it Essene Macrobiotic Supply. That was the beginning of Essene. 6 months later, I came home, and I walked into the house, and I knew something was wrong, because Stanley had 2 earthly possessions, his pressure cooker and his sleeping bag. When I walked into our house, a few of us lived together who were part of Essene, the first thing you always saw was the pressure cooker on the stove. I walked in, no pressure cooker. Ran to the bedroom, there was no sleeping bag. Stanley disappeared after 6 months. I thought, really, he was an angel from heaven who came to introduce me to macrobiotics and to start Essene. Finally, 6 months later, no, 6 years later, one day, sitting around, I get a call. Hey, it's Stanley, remember me? I said, yeah, I do. He said, can I come back? So it's a little late now. Things have changed a lot since, and that was the last word I ever had with Stanley. And that was the beginning of this adventure. Later that month, end of February 1969, I met Michio Kushi when he came to Philadelphia for a lecture. And that began this journey that I call macrobiotics. Then in 1978, I met Dr. Anthony Sotolaro, who was the president of Methodist Hospital. He had terminal prostate cancer. His prognosis was only a few months. And he came to see me almost by accident, told me his story. I said, well, why don't you practice macrobiotics, and you don't have to die, you can recover your health. And when he was there, This woman, Mona Schwartz, was at the house. She was my first client. And Mona said to me when he left, you better take care of him personally. I really want you to look after him yourself. I said, Mona, let's see what he does. Let's wait and see. Day by day, he'd come to a scene, he'd shop, he'd talk to people. After about a week or so, I'd said, Dr. Sadalara, Tony, you want to come eat at my house? And he did. Then he documented his story, and he wrote, Recalled by Life. And Recalled by Life became a bestseller. Sold over 1 million copies. It made Macrobiotics famous. The problem was, I didn't know at the time, it was the beginning of the end of the macrobiotic movement. The reason was it gave people the idea worldwide that macrobiotics is about cancer. Many people thought you actually had to have cancer to practice macrobiotics. Throughout the years, so many people have said to me, when I get cancer, if I get cancer, then I'll practice. Till then, I don't want to do it. When this is the best way of eating and living for the entire planet. Macrobiotics is now more important than ever for our personal health, for our social health, and for our planetary health. And for that purpose, I wrote the book, The Great Life Diet. It's the most important book in the 21st century. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating. I like to make bold statements you think couldn't possibly be true. But I never say them unless I know them to be true. An example. In our school, we have a 1-year course in the Strengthening Health Institute. And this young, very bright boy attended. And he was always trying to catch me on something. One day I said, we all breathe our own air. We all breathe our own oxygen according to our own condition. In other words, in this room, everyone, according to your blood quality, you either attract oxygen or pollution. That's up to you. We all breathe our own air. Several months ago, I got a letter from him. I've always tried to disprove that statement. But actually, in trying to disprove it, I found proof for it. You were actually right. Because it turns out there's research that shows the more alkali in your blood, the more your hemoglobin has an ability to bind with oxygen and circulate through your body. Conversely, the more acidic your blood, the less oxygen the hemoglobin can bind with. The main purpose of hemoglobin, that's the heart of our blood, iron-containing protein, is to bind with oxygen and transport it through our body. In other words, the alkalinity or acidity of our blood determines how much oxygen we have available in any given situation. So again, we all breathe our own air.